The House be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., March 4th, 2025. I hereby appoint the Honorable David Rouser to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 3rd, 2025, the chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The chair will alternate recognition between the parties with time equally allocated between the parties and each member other than the majority and minority leaders, and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes, but in no event shall debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Iowa, Ms. Miller Meeks, for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commend President Donald Trump for the executive actions he has taken to secure our southern border. Thanks to his leadership, illegal crossings have dropped to the lowest level we have seen in decades. Our communities have suffered for too long under Joe Biden's failed open border policies. Crime has surged, fentanyl has poured in, and American jobs have been undermined. Biden's refusal to enforce our immigration laws created a national security crisis. But now, with President Trump back in office, we are witnessing the power of real enforcement. His executive actions are restoring order, protecting American families, and putting our country first. Biden let chaos reign while Trump is bringing security back to our borders. We must never allow radical left policies to threaten our nation's safety again. America deserves a leader who enforces the law, defends our borders, and stands up for its citizens. And that leader is Donald Trump. Mr. Speaker, I should be standing here today celebrating the Senate's passage of the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, a bill that simply ensures fairness and common sense in athletics. But instead, Senate Democrats made their priorities clear. 45 Senate Democrats voted against protecting women's sports. 45 Senate Democrats voted against keeping women's spaces safe. 45 Senate Democrats voted against protecting women. Despite the fact that 80% of Americans agree that men do not belong in women's sports, Senate Democrats still chose to ignore reality and put our daughters at risk. This isn't about politics. This is about fairness, safety, and protecting the integrity of women's sports. This is about a level playing field. If it wasn't obvious before now, it is. Republicans are the party that stands for women. We are the party that defends their right to compete on a level playing field. And while Democrats try to erase the very definition of womanhood, we will never back down. They can slow us down, but they will not stop us. We will keep fighting until every woman and girl in this country has the protections they deserve. America's daughters deserve better than what Senate Democrats did last night. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Ramirez, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to commemorate Women's History Month by uplifting my dear friend, a powerful organizer, Erendira Ere Rendon. Ere has dedicated her life to fighting for the dignity and liberation of immigrant communities. Hailing from Oaxaca, Mexico, Ere immigrated to the United States in 1990 to be reunited with her father. Ere is one of 530,000 from the roughly 3.6 million dreamers receiving DACA, a program that has been viciously attacked in this chamber. Inspired by her family's and her own experiences, Ere has fought to expand and affirm immigrant rights, ensuring access to driver's license, health care regardless of legal status, and funding for necessary legal services. For nearly 15 years, Ere has organized at the Resurrection Project, helping to found the Immigrant Justice Department, where she serves as vice president. It is one of the countless Poderosa Mujeres leaders organizing to protect and unite our communities, reminding us that immigrants make our communities stronger. On behalf of Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, Ere, it is my honor to commend you in this day, Erendira Rendon, for your lifelong commitment to ensuring that immigrant communities are seen, immigrants are valued, uplifted, and loved just as you are. Congratulations, Ere. And Mr. Speaker, At a time of unserious efforts to establish English as the official language of the United States, I rise today to celebrate my constituent Angelica Garcia Santos in a language proudly spoken in Illinois' 3rd Congressional District. En honor del Mes de la Mujer, felicito a la líder comunitaria activista Angelica Garcia Santos, mi constituyente de West Chicago. Angélica comenzó como voluntaria en la organización sin bien de lucro de defensa de los inmigrantes de Illinois 3, Casa Michoacán, donde ahora se desempeña como coordinadora. En Casa Michoacán, Angélica brinda recursos para conectar a sus vecinos inmigrantes con su comunidad e informarlos sobre sus derechos. Como activista, Angélica también ha ayudado a defender la expansión de ciudadanos médicos para inmigrantes inspirado por sus propias experiencias. Angélica es una de las innumerables líderes comunitarias de mi distrito que sienten la urgencia en este momento en que mis colegas republicanos no avancen con recortes devastadores a los programas federales de Medicaid. El activismo de Angélica nos recuerda cuánto contribuyen nuestros inmigrantes a nuestra comunidad, así que felicitaciones, Angélica, de parte de tu congresista. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to commemorate Women's History Month and to celebrate the rich contributions of Ukrainians in Illinois 3 by uplifting my constituent, Dr. Mariah Dimitriev-Kopeniak, for her work to honor our shared humanity. A family medicine doctor, Dr. Dimitriev-Kopeniak, exemplifies putting together our vocation into service for humanity. And as a proud member of the Illinois chapter of the Ukrainian Medical Association in North America and the president of the Illinois division of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, she has secured medical donations and supply coordinations to help save lives in Ukraine. This past Sunday, I had the honor to stand with her and Ukrainian Americans at a Chicago rally to send a clear message. We who stand for democracy will not be bullied by dictators, not in Ukraine, not in other parts of the world, and not in the United States. So on behalf of Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, home to thousands of Ukrainians and Ukrainian Americans, it is my honor to commend Dr. Mariah Dimitriev-Kopeniak for her tremendous leadership and commitment to human dignity, to peace, and democracy. Thank you, Mariah. Congratulations. And with that, Speaker, I yield back.
The chair asks the gentlewoman to provide a translation to the desk. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Lamalfa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before President Trump got into office recently, America's security was really in doubt, especially on our border. So the actions taken by us in this House, as well as, very importantly, what President Trump has done to secure our border is incredible. The numbers are down dramatically from the amount of people coming across illegally daily to the mere small number that's still doing so now, until such point as we complete the border fence and the other measures taken to have the border completely secure. Pretty amazing turnaround. So tomorrow, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform will question the mayors of several of our large cities that seem to be just more concerned about the benefits of illegal immigrants than of American people. Mayors of Boston, Chicago, Denver, and New York that have been harboring illegal immigrants as sanctuary areas and have jeopardized the public safety of their own constituents and drained taxpayer-funded resources. They'll be held accountable in this hearing. These so-called leaders have chosen to ignore federal immigration laws. They're breaking the law, and they brag about it, and they say they will continue to do so. They chose to shield illegal immigrants, including criminals, rather than protect the people they were actually elected to serve. They chose policies that have overwhelmed law enforcement, strained public services, and put American families at risk. They don't seem to care that these tax dollars come from the hardworking people that actually did have eligibility to vote for them. So we House Republicans refuse to let this continue and are continue to take action. President Trump declared a national emergency and deployed the military to the border to slow down that massive tide. Indeed, it has worked. He's ended catch and release, where basically you catch somebody at the border, process them as fast as you can, and turn them loose in the country, maybe to come back in for a hearing on asylum, supposedly within a couple of years. He reestablished the Remain in Mexico policy. So they're not to just come into the country. If Mexico's going to let them in from the south, then they can deal with it. So Remain in Mexico, not automatic passage into the U.S. He's restarted the border wall construction. Indeed, that makes it so much easier for our law enforcement personnel, our border personnel, to be able to narrow down the tide coming in and focus on what's going to happen there. He's shut down the CBP One app. He's terminated taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal immigrants. Now, we still have states, like my home state of California, that can't give it away fast enough. At one point, $9.5 billion for illegal immigrants in their health care program. At the same time that the state is asking for $40 billion to get bailed out after the horrific fire situation in Southern California. He's terminated taxpayer benefits overall for illegal immigrants via executive order. We need to back him up on that. Began transferring criminal aliens to Guantanamo Bay so they don't get away. Classified cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Indeed, they are. Suspended the U.S. refugee admissions program. He's clawed back DHS funds that were being used to house illegal immigrants. At the same time, we have people suffering from disaster. They're getting more and more benefits for illegal immigrants for housing. Here we'll be able to pass the Lake and Riley Act to keep violent criminals off of our streets, especially those that are here as illegal immigrants. Pass the Violence Against Women Act by illegal aliens to protect these innocent lives. Pass the Halt Fentanyl Act to stop deadly drugs from flowing across our border. Fentanyl is an existential crisis in this country for so many people. It is so deadly and yet so prevalent. It is sent through Mexico so much by China. Mexico is not being a good neighbor when they keep allowing this. We passed the Agent Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act to give law enforcement the tools they need as well. Results, illegal border crossings, as I mentioned, have dropped dramatically. Apprehensions have fallen by 92% because they don't have to apprehend this 93%. A major victory for border security. So we will not back down. I know President Trump will not back down. We need to move forward because we really are, when you uphold your right hand and swear your allegiance to this country and its Constitution, that's our job, to make our country strong, make our country safe, and serve our own citizens who are already struggling enough with inflation, with choking regulations in some cases, and so much that is going against the grain of what the founding of this country was about. So I'm proud of the work we've been trying to do here on the House floor. I hope we can get more of a bipartisan effort on that as we see the common sense of what we're trying to do, that the Senate can take this up and support the leadership President Trump has provided and the results we've seen so strongly so far. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Stevens, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Within 12 hours' time, this very chamber is going to witness a joint address to Congress. And I would like to take my time, my privilege as a member, an elected, duly elected member of this chamber, to share some of the sentiments about the state of the union that is emerging very clearly and loudly from Michigan and on behalf of my constituents. First and foremost, tariffs that are coming down today on Canada are wreaking havoc on auto workers, our auto industry, and frankly, the stock market. Secondly, I am hearing very grave concerns about the state of Social Security, Social Security's ability to meet its fiduciary commitments to its millions and millions of recipients. Never once in the history of that program has a payment been missed, but the actions of DOGE are disrupting that very agency. There's also very palpable fear from my constituents, veterans who are 100% disabled, who are concerned and fearful that they may or may not be able to continue to receive their medical care. This is a serious and profound moment. This is a self-inflicted crisis. I did serve this nation during a time of real economic crisis, during the Great Recession in the administration of Barack Obama, when I was in the Treasury Department working to save General Motors and Chrysler and millions of American automotive jobs as the companies were staring liquidation in the face. I'd also like to take a moment to share some words. On February 8th, at the Sheet Metal Workers Union in Oakland County, Michigan, I was joined by an incredible medical expert from Michigan, my friend, Dr. Preetha Iyengar, who happens to be in this very chamber alongside her family here today. And she read these words, which I would like to share and read on her behalf, on the behalf of the American people in this chamber. Dr. Iyengar shared, "I am a pediatrician and an epidemiologist. After residency, I trained for 2 years at the CDC and then worked in Washington, D.C. at an NGO and at the D.C. Health Department." She claimed, "I'm here today to highlight the impact of recent policies and actions on scientific institutions and how that impacts us in Michigan." She said, "Our scientific institutions are being attacked from many angles," but she wanted to highlight 3 areas: the spreading of misinformation, the purging of experts, and the destruction of scientific institutions and the destruction of critical infrastructure. We are seeing that the current administration agenda is misinformation and confusion. Federal healthcare and public health institutions are facing unprecedented censorship and harassment. Bans for external communications have crippled international collaborations, with special exceptions given at random and many that have not been restored. Websites with CDC healthcare guidelines used by doctors and public health information used by all of us in the medical community, like vaccine safety information sheets, were forced to be removed without warning. Dr. Iyengar also mentioned that we now are less safe to protect ourselves during the flu season, particularly with bird flu. I may insert that the question, how much are egg prices today in the United States of America? People are stealing eggs outside of delivery trucks and engaging in fights in supermarkets across this country. This is the United States of America, and we need an egg price plan. Dr. Iyengar also went on to say that as a woman in STEM, she is horrified to see that the targeting of DEI programs, and let's say the words diversity, equity, and inclusion, equity, which is enshrined in our very Constitution, that all equal members of this chamber swore an oath to uphold. And yes, I will remind people of the rights and the tenets of Article 1 in our Constitution. So Dr. Iyengar says she's horrified by the cuts to diversity, equity, and inclusion as a woman in STEM. And frankly, as the leader of the Women in STEM caucus, I founded this caucus bipartisan with 4 members of this chamber, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and we're so eager. Yes, it is Women's History Month, and we would like to do some things for women in STEM to meet the workforce challenges and needs of this great nation. And of course, I cannot, at this present time, tragically get a Republican member of Congress to join in the Women in STEM caucus for this term. It looks like I'm out of time, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The chair reminds members that the rules do not allow references to persons in the gallery. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Norman, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Speaker Self. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor a truly remarkable individual, Phil Ginn, whose unwavering commitment to his community has been an inspiration to all of us who know him. His lifetime of service to his family, to his faith, and to his country has made him an institution in his community, and his influence will be felt for generations to come. Judge Ginn's pursuit of excellence began his education where he graduated magna cum laude from Appalachian State University and earned his law degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. His legal career spanned over 4 decades, including 22 years as the senior resident Superior Court judge for the 24th Judicial District in North Carolina. Throughout his tenure, he upheld the rule of law with wisdom, with fairness, and with integrity. Judge Ginn's influence extended far beyond the courtroom, where he not only delivered legal rulings, but also mentored those around him, always striving to instill truth and justice. After retiring from the bench in 2014, Judge Ginn transitioned to the business world as he purchased a struggling horizontal pump company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Over the next 3 years, with the help of key employees and through exemplary leadership, he managed to turn the business into one of the largest privately owned horizontal pump companies in the United States. In early 2018, Judge Ginn completed the sale of the company and returned to his beloved mountains of western North Carolina. But it is not just in law and in business where Judge Ginn's legacy is found. His greatest passion has always been his faith, his devotion, which led him to serve as chairman of the Board of Trustees of Southern Evangelical Seminary. And in 1921, he assumed the role as its sixth president. Under his leadership, the seminary has continued its vital mission to evangelize our culture as a defender and as a disciple of the Christian faith. Founded in 1992 by Dr. Norman Gensler and Dr. Ross Rhodes, Southern Evangelical Seminary is widely recognized as one of the top 10 evangelical Christian seminaries in the country, offering accredited programs rooted in a classical philosophy of education. Recently, SES has further enhanced its national standing as one of the premier evangelical seminaries in America through the establishment and dedication of a new innovative training center in Rock Hill, South Carolina. The center includes a state-of-the-art, fully digital campus that serves as a thriving international body. Throughout his accomplishments, Judge Ginn has remained a devoted husband, a devoted father, and a devoted grandfather. He and his wife, Lynn, have been married for over 40 years and have raised 4 daughters, 3 son-in-laws, and 5 grandchildren, imparting to them the same values of faith, of service, and community that have helped shape his life and his legacy. Above all of his many accomplishments, it is Judge Ginn's unwavering faith in the Lord Jesus Christ that has truly defined his life. In his courtroom, his office, and his personal life, the Holy Bible has been his standard of truth, the source of all wisdom, and the promise upon which he stands. In dealing with his fellow man, he is a person who knows no superiors. He is a person who knows no inferiors. He lives by the values instilled in him at a young age by his parents, the Reverend and Miss Charles Ginn, to treat others without regard for position or power, respect elders, and love children, work hard, speak the truth, stand for the American flag and those who fight for our freedom, and to give generously but quietly. His life is a masterclass in respect, in honor, and kindness, and his legacy will be long remembered, not just for his accomplishments, but for his character. Judge Ginn's legacy of leadership, compassion, and commitment to justice continues to inspire all who encounter him. He is a man who lives by the Bible and is proof that to whom much is given, much is required. On behalf of the people of South Carolina's 5th Congressional District, I extend my deepest congratulations to Judge Ginn and his family on his well-deserved recognition. His life reminds us that true leadership begins with being a good and honorable person. Please join me in saying a heartfelt thank you to Judge Phil Ginn. I yield back.
The gentleman recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Cisneros, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Republican leadership has called for a year-long continuing resolution ahead of next week's government funding deadline. That is a horrible idea. To be clear, the government funding bill should have been completed last year, but House Republicans made the political decision to punt them to this year because they wanted to wait for President Trump to move into the White House. Well, House Republicans got what they wanted, but still haven't been able to pass any new funding because their party refuses to accept the responsibility of governing. That's what's led us to this year-long CR. Both the President and the Speaker have called for a quote-unquote clean CR, but neither of them can articulate what that means. So not only is Republican leadership struggling to say what they want to see in it, but a year-long CR would negatively impact our economy. A year-long CR creates economic uncertainty and job insecurity because it prevents federal agencies from making new hires and starting new programs. It delays contracts and applications for grants, which reduce the level of services agencies provide while also increasing costs. And it reduces funding for nearly every federal program that America relies on, like VA medical care and food assistance programs. Donald Trump and Shadow President Musk have already thrown hundreds of thousands of public employees in limbo. A CR would only exacerbate that uncertainty and endanger their livelihoods. But that's not the only disastrous implication of a year-long CR. A year-long CR would undermine our military readiness and our national security. The Department of Defense would have to slow recruiting efforts and delay service member moves, throwing our military families into limbo. Not to mention it would potentially negate the 14.5% pay raise for junior enlisted, delay military housing projects, and undercut initiatives to improve service member quality of life and mental health. Also, because a year-long CR would not account for inflation, thousands of DoD programs would see cuts. That includes programs that delay the nuclear triad modernization, shipbuilding and ship maintenance, munitions production and replenishment, and U.S. priorities in the Indo-Pacific. Ultimately, a year-long CR would force too much uncertainty and stress onto our service members and their families, and it would impede our ability to react to national security threats. Even some of my Republican colleagues agree with me on this point. One Republican colleague has said a continuing resolution is bad for our military and weakens our national security. A CR means new weapons programs cannot get started. Shipbuilding will be delayed. A year-long CR means we are not serious about building a military that will deter the PRC, Russia, or Iran. The White House may be out of touch with reality when it comes to Ukraine and supporting our allies abroad, but their fealty to Vladimir Putin doesn't mean the United States can resign the role in standing for Ukraine and democracies around the world. Washington Republicans need to get it together. They control the White House and they control Congress. If we have a government shutdown, it falls on them and their inability to govern. I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to pay tribute to a dear friend, a great vocalist, entertainer, outstanding civic and community leader, and for many years a solid member of the Cook County Board of Commissioners with a primary focus on health care. Jerry Butler. Jerry was born in Sunflower, Mississippi, and his parents, like thousands of other blacks, migrated to Chicago. As a matter of fact, we fondly sometimes call Chicago northern Mississippi. Jerry's family lived in the Cabrini Green area, which was a large public housing development. And that's where Jerry, Curtis Mayfield, and their friends sang spirituals as young teenagers and young adults. Doo-wops, hung out and had fun, ultimately forming a group called the Roosters, and then the Impressions. The Impressions were sensational, and Jerry performed with them for a bit and then went solo. After leaving the group in 1960, Jerry achieved over 55 Billboard pop, rhythm, and blues hits as a solo artist. Some of his top hits were He Will Break Your Heart, Let It Be Me, Only the Strong Survive. Jerry co-wrote the song For Your Precious Love, which is ranked number 321 on the Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Jerry was known as the Iceman and even played a small role in a movie. Jerry was elected to the Cook County Board in 1985 and served there until he retired in 2018. His last election was in 2014, in which he received 80% of the votes. Jerry served as host of PBS's TV music specials, such as Doo-Wop 50 and 51, Rock Rhythm and Doo-Wop and Soul Spectacular, and 40 years of rhythm and blues. He also served as chairman of the board of the Rhythm and Blues Foundation. In 1991, Jerry was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with the other original members of the Impressions, Curtis Mayfield, Sam Gooden, Fred Cash, and Arthur and Richard Brooks. When Jerry and I served on the Cook County Board together, I was walking down the hall one morning, humming Moon River, and I passed Jerry's door, and he hollered out and said, "I hear you." And I said, "Well, how am I doing?" He said, "Well, don't quit your day job." Well, Jerry, I didn't quit my day job. I'm still here. And I know that you're up there in heaven with all of the other soulful singers, and we're never going to give you up. And I know that you're up there leading them in glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. The only thing that I say, you lived a life well done, and I'll see you when I get there. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from New Jersey, Ms. Watson Coleman, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ask any member of Congress and they'll tell you none of us could adequately serve their constituents without staffers. They are a necessary component of our office. And so I'd like to take a moment today to thank my Chief of Staff, Carrie Osmond, who will be leaving our office at the conclusion of today's work. Carrie has been working with me since I was first elected to represent the 12th Congressional District a decade ago, but I have known her since my time in the State Assembly. In fact, we spent so much time together during my first campaign, driving around the 12th Congressional District, listening to gospel music, I nearly turned her into a Black Baptist. We preferred Hezekiah Walker's Every Praise. Her dedication and her commitment to the people in the 4 counties that I represent has never wavered in all of the time that I've known her. Carrie is not just a friend. Bill, my husband, and I consider her family. She has been a tremendous professional, a committed organizer, and a courageous leader who has always run toward the fight. In her time as Chief of Staff, she also helped me to assemble a talented team committed to representing the values of the 12th Congressional District and fighting for everyday New Jerseyans. A Congress member is only as good as their staff, and she's led one of the best on the Hill for the last 4 years, and the best in New Jersey in our office, our district office. I will miss her greatly. I will miss her dearly. I'm certain, though, that she will carry her talent and her commitment to service to her new role at the College of New Jersey. Carrie, I wish you Godspeed, best wishes, and know that you go with my love. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Larson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak and address the chamber about the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for children. I speak, of course, of Social Security. Social Security is currently under attack by the Trump administration. With just this weekend, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Trump calling Social Security a scam, and Mr. Musk calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure, as you know, in your district, you have 209,000 Social Security recipients. 150,000 7,000 are retirees, 25,000 plus are disabled workers, 10,000 are widows, 3,678 are spouses, and over 12,000 children. I don't believe that you think that Social Security and the checks that they receive is a scam, or that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. In fact, in your district, $377 million comes into your district monthly that goes to those individuals. And where do they spend that money? Right back in your district, at the grocery store, at the pharmacy, at the dry cleaners, heating and cooling their homes, paying their rent, their mortgage, putting gasoline in a car. The brilliance of Franklin Delano Roosevelt still lives on. This is capitalism's answer to have a safety net for people who, through no fault of their own, or because they work and ultimately end up retiring, have benefits that they can live on. It's especially more important as people are living longer, that they have these benefits that are currently under siege by an administration who has asked Elon Musk to find $2 trillion in cuts. And where is he looking? He's looking right at your district, Mr. Speaker, in my district, and the 435 congressional districts, on average, who receive $200 million monthly from Social Security. On average, where there are more than 145,000 people per district receive these benefits that go directly back to the local economy. We're looking for 3 Republicans to stand with a unified Democratic Party and Congress to push forward a bill that was last extended in 1971. Richard Nixon was President of the United States the last time Social Security benefits were extended for your constituents in North Carolina, as well as my constituents in Connecticut. It's long overdue. We have a COLA that doesn't work. We have people that continue to work after they receive Social Security that are taxed on their benefits. We've had teachers and firefighters and police officers as well who have been denied benefits. And now, while they're eligible for them, they're not funded. And so that money comes out of the trust fund. And President Trump has now proposed a tax cut for Social Security that's unpaid for, that is over a $900 billion hit to Social Security and all the constituents who receive it. Mr. Speaker, I know you to be a man of goodwill and understand your district and what your people need as well. It's long overdue for the citizens of North Carolina and Connecticut to have their Social Security benefits enhanced, not cut.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until noon today.